All right, today we're going to talk about how money flows from the income sheet to the balance statement and then back from the balance statement to the income sheet. So here I've just got a super simple income sheet and just our basic balance sheet, assets, liabilities, net worth. So if we took a very simple income and say we got an income of $100, we're going to be taxed at 30. That leaves us $70 of income after taxes. If we spend all of that $70, that leaves us nothing left over. We have no cash. But the fact that we're good Americans, that doesn't stop us from spending. So I can come over and I can buy $10 worth of assets. Maybe that's a new couch, a new TV, or something like that. If I have no money and I want to buy something, then the way I buy this item is by borrowing money. It goes on my Visa or some other debt instrument. So I'm going to come up with $10 in liabilities to support this $10 in spending. Now, immediately as soon as I buy my couch and I put it in my house, if that couch was $1,000 and I had the couch for 3 or 4 months and then I decided, I really don't like this couch, I want to get rid of it, if I could sell that couch for $500, I would be pretty happy. So almost immediately the assets, especially assets that go down in value, furniture, electronics, clothing, all that stuff goes down very quickly. They're going to depreciate. So I bought it for $10, borrowed $10, it almost immediately becomes worth less. It's worth $5 now. To figure out net worth, I take assets minus liabilities equal net worth. 5 minus 10 equals a net worth of -5. So I'm going to end my first year with -5 for a total net worth. Now, the way this comes back at you from the balance sheet to the income statement is banks aren't there just to be nice to you. They're not your mom and dad. They're going to charge you interest. Average rates on credit cards right now are around 17%. They used to be 22, 23% on average. And so we're going to, just for simplicity's sake, say that these credit cards are charging us 20%. So 20% of 10 is $2. So this liability actually comes back to you as an expense, an interest expense. Now we have an interest expense of $2, which means my cash left over is actually -2. $70 of income, I'm spending $70. I got $2 here in interest expense from my loan, gives us -2. If I keep my spending up, how do I support negative total overall spending? I have to borrow to support negative spending, which is what our government does. 40 cents out of every dollar is borrowed. We really don't even pay the interest. We just roll it over into new loans. And so I'm going to roll over this interest into a new liability. Plus, just because I'm in debt doesn't mean I'm going to stop borrowing money and stop buying stuff. I go out, I buy another $10 worth of stuff. That's supported by $10 worth of borrowing. These depreciate. 10 becomes 5, and say 5 becomes 3. My total assets now are 8. My total liabilities are 22. 8 minus 22 gives me a -14. So in year 2, my net worth is -14. By the way, this represents about 30% of everybody that gets out of college. does this for about 7 years. 20% of 22, rounded to the nearest dollar, is 4. So that means my interest expense comes back at me, and I now have $4, which gets me a -4 in cash flow, which has to be supported. So I have to borrow $4 more to keep up with that negative spending. But there's still more good stuff to buy. So I go out, I buy $10 more worth of stuff. I have to borrow $10 to keep that up. 10 becomes 5, 5 becomes 3, 3 becomes 1. I now have $9 in total assets on this side of my ledger. 22, 32, $36 in liabilities. 9 minus 36 is a -27. So now I've got a -27 in net worth. 20% of 3.6 rounded is 7. So now I have $7 here of interest expense, which has to be supported. So I got to borrow that money. And then I'm going to buy another $10 worth of stuff. So I'm going to have $10 here. 10 becomes 5, 5 becomes 3, 3 becomes 1. 1 becomes basically my 5-year-old couch sitting there is worth nothing. Nobody wants my 5-year-old couch. It's pretty much worthless. If I get $50, more than excited. We're going to then add 36, 7, and 10, which is going to get us 30, 40, 53. 53 in debts. $9 in assets. 9 minus 53 equals 44. $53 times 20 gets us 11 times 0.2 gets us 11. So I got $11 in interest expense now, giving me a -11, which I got to support. I'm going to still buy more stuff because, you know what, just buying stuff is fun. We carry this through, and I still have $9 worth of assets. We borrowed 10 to support that spending, 53, 63, 73, 74 in total overall debts. 9 minus 74 gets me 65, -65 in net worth. And so now you're thinking, well, I'm going to take responsibility for what's going on. I'm going to at least stop buying stuff. But we're so far in the hole, 20%, 7.4 plus 7.4 is 15. So we're looking at about $15 in interest expense. Interest expense, that liability has to be supported, is going to come back over to me as $15 of interest expense. That still has to be supported over here. So I go $15 further in the hole. These things are still going to depreciate. 5 becomes 3, 3 becomes 1, 1 becomes 0. I now have total assets of 4 and total liabilities here of 89. We're now basically at a point that you have stuck yourself so far into a hole, it is almost impossible to get out. And so now we're going to drastically cut our spending. And we cut our spending by 20%. And so we're going to lower this by 14. Going to lower this down to 56. 89, 8.9 plus 8.9, 20% here of 89 gets us 18. So we've got 18 here in interest expense. We're still in the hole, all right? Because we're looking here at $74 total spending. We're still $4 in the hole. which means I come over here, we're still at another 4 on this side. This is going to go down. 3 becomes 1. I've got $1 in assets. I have $93 in liabilities, and now I'm in the hole negative 92 after cutting my expenses by 20% because the interest here is just eating us alive. So this is when that son or daughter finished college, moved out, bought themselves a new BMW 3 Series, has a whole bunch of cool furniture. They had fun for 6-7 years. Now they can't make their debts, and they move back in with mom and dad so they can pay it off. Or you file bankruptcy. I mean, those are really your only 2 options at this point. They certainly have a whole bunch of stuff that is really, really cool. They're going to have one heck of a great garage sale. This is a garage sale you want to go to. But this person is going to then move back home, cut their spending by 50% down to maybe 35%, but they still have 20%. They still got $20 of interest expense coming in, which gets us $55, which at least now I have a positive cash flow here of 15 because I'm not paying rent because I'm at mom and dad's house. And oh, by the way, mom and dad probably want you home by 11 o'clock every night also. I'm going to start taking this $15 and putting it here to this expense. And I'll finally get my leased car paid off. I'll get a bunch of other stuff paid off. But it's going to take me 5 or 6 years to dig out of this hole. So you graduate, maybe it's say 25 years old. Now we're 12 years down. Congratulations, you're now 37 years old. You have your debt paid off, and your net worth is 0. And that represents a lot of our society at this point. All right, so we just finished our one section over there about buying assets and borrowing. In this scenario, we got a very similar situation, but they're only spending $60. But they're still buying stuff with an extra $10, and we're buying depreciating assets. We have no quote-unquote cash left over. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to buy $10 worth of stuff, which immediately loses value to 5. I have no liabilities over here, so 5 minus 0 equals 5 for my net worth. In year 2, I don't have any interest expense coming back at me like we did in the last example because I didn't do any borrowing. We go out, we buy more stuff. We buy $10 worth of stuff. 10 becomes 5. 5 becomes 3. My total assets now are 8. 5 plus 3. So that's 8. Year 2 is 8. Year 3, I buy $10 worth of stuff. 10 becomes 5. 5 becomes 3. 3 becomes 1. I now have $9 worth of stuff. No liabilities. My net worth is 9. Go out and buy more stuff. 10 becomes 5. 5 becomes 3. 3 becomes 1. 1 becomes 0. My total is 9. Because I'm going to end up here basically with items that are worth very, very little. If I do this again, 10 becomes 5, 5 becomes 3, 3 becomes 1, 1 becomes 0. We still got 9. We're at the same spot. So now, each year, we go back and we got 9. We're not going to be growing our net worth because we're not buying assets that are going up in value. We're buying assets that are going down in value. We're going to have lots and lots of stuff. This represents about another 25-30% of society, by the way, that they've got lots of stuff. In fact, they got so much stuff, they had to go out and get a public storage warehouse to stick all their stuff in because they got so much. Almost all studies show that stuff that's stored in public storage you will spend 3 to 10 times more in storage fees than the value of the stuff in the lockers that are out there. That's how addicted we are to stuff. At least this person isn't borrowing money, so they haven't dug themselves a huge hole. But now, if they start saving, it becomes a very hard mental change to go from spending on stuff that's fun to spend on to actually investing money. And so the next example, we're going to show you how it works when we start investing in assets that go up in value. Okay, on this example, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be investing money in appreciating assets and see what that impact is going to be. So, very similar. The top section is the same as all three of the last ones. We got $100 in income. We're taxed. We have $70 left over. This person's going to spend $60, and that leaves $10 cash left, and we're going to invest that money. When we look at investing versus gambling, all right? Gambling is when you know the expected outcome is going to be negative. So playing the slot machines in Vegas, even though you get 99.4% of your money back, you know you're losing 0.6. The house has the advantage. The same in blackjack. No matter what system you come up with blackjack, you're gambling. The expected outcome is a loss because in blackjack, you go bust before the house goes bust. If you bust and the house busts, the house keeps your money. That's their advantage. A car is also not an investment. A car is going to go down in value. Some cars go down less in value. Some cars don't go down as fast, but the expected value is less and less each year. An investment in like stocks, bonds, companies, mutual funds, the expected outcome is they will go up in value, including housing. Although housing has certainly had a tough 6-7 years, but right now, as of the taping of this, in April 2013, housing is up about 15% this year. So it certainly goes up and down. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our extra $10 and we are going to invest in an appreciating asset. So we're going to say that we're investing in the Standard & Poor's 500 index, which is a diversified stock portfolio. The average rate of return of a diversified stock portfolio has been about 10% year in, year out. Some years are great, returns 45%. Some years are horrible, down 30. Some years it's up 12. Sometimes it's down 2. Sometimes 18. But overall, on average, it's about a 10% rate of return. So we deposit $10, and then if I expect this to go up 10% in value, it is going to appreciate. It's going to go up $1. And so this dollar here actually is investment income. So when you buy appreciating assets, it comes back at you as investment income. So now I have an extra $1. Whereas liabilities, borrowing, comes back at us as an expense. Now, I know some people are saying, well, you know what, you put this investment income below the tax line, we're not going to really worry about taxes for this example. We're just going to say it's tax deferred and punt on that issue. So this way, now I have my extra $1. Next year when I go to invest, I don't have $10, I have $11. And so we end year one with $11 in assets. I then invest another 11, right? Because I got my extra $1 came back to me again. I've got then $22. if I get a 10% return on this, I'm going to get an extra $2, which gets me $24 at the end here of year 2. At the end of year 3, or at the end of year 3, I've got $2.4 coming my way. Rounded to the nearest is $2. So I got my $2. Comes down here to 12. I'm going to invest 12. I add that together. Now I got $36 at the end of the year here for year 3. And this money keeps coming back at you as interest income. Right? I've got a rate of return here, and I'll do a little bit of shortcut just so we can go a little quicker. But I'm going to invest back in what was my original $10. Okay? So I invest back in my original $10. I make $3.6 rounded to the nearest dollar. I make 4 in interest income or investment income. I add that up, and now I got $50. I invest my $10, plus this investment grew during the year by 10%, or another 5. Now I got 65. I invest that original $10. That gives, plus I get $7, 6.5, rounded to the nearest is 7. I got $7 in investment income. That gives me a 2, 6, 7, 8. I now have $82. I invest my original 10, plus I get an $8 rate of return here. That's a 0, 1, and now I'm sitting on $100 in year 7. And since I used $100 here, we could also kind of look at this as percentages. So if I'm making, say, $70,000 a year, what I've done here is I've got 100% of that income, or about a $70,000 savings. If I'm making $100,000, I've saved here $100,000. Something really interesting happens right about the time you've saved the amount that you have in income. You end up getting so much pressure behind you. We start making so much money in these funds that, you know what, I can go ahead now and I can stop saving money into my retirement account. So I'm going to stop. I'm not saving anymore. I'm not investing. You know what, I'm going to go buy my BMW 3 Series now after I've started my savings. I'm going to start going on bigger vacations. I'm going to start maybe not working overtime. And now I've got $100 sitting in my account, but this still is going to make money. 10% of 100 is 10, which means a year after that, I've got $110 in that account. The year after that, this is going to make 11. I've got $121. And this just takes off exponentially, and the growth rate becomes huge. This person now is going to be getting $12 in investment income, where the other individuals are just starting to save. It is going to be very tough mathematically for one of the first couple of people to catch this person. They're just not going to be able to do it. And if I keep saving into this account, I am going to get so phenomenally ahead of the game in just 15, 16 years, 20 years, that then I can coast the next 20, and I'll still have one heck of a huge retirement savings. I look at a couple of things. I have, partly always encouraged by family to save. It's always kind of been a tenet of our family. But I've got friends that went and spent and spent and spent, and it's going to be impossible for them to catch me mathematically. Plus, when you're first starting out, that's the time it's okay to be broke. That's the time that you want to set aside money and you want to be saving. And if you have 5 or 6 guys or 5 or 6 girls go down to San Diego and you all get 2 rooms at a Motel 6 and half of you are sleeping on the floor and then you flip who sleeps in the beds and who sleeps on the floor. I mean, when you're 23, 25, 27, that's the time to do all that, save your money and invest. That's the time that nobody expects you to be driving some great car. But by the time you're in your 40s, that's not when you want to be spending 30% of all your money paying off debt and trying to start a savings account. That's the time that, to be quite frank, when you're in your mid-40s, 6, 8 guys in a motel room and trading off who's sleeping in the bed, who's sleeping on the floor, isn't very appealing anymore. It's not quite as fun as it used to be. So now's the time to start saving. Once you get to this point, you end up with such a phenomenal wind at your back that you're going to end up doing exceedingly well. The 2 big points to be made here to take away from this are that appreciating assets come back to you as investment income. When you borrow money, liabilities come back to you as an expense.